Well, as always, it's an honor to have with us Gary Bauer, and he heads up American Values. And if you're not receiving his end of the day report, you're missing out, because Gary really kind of encapsulated everything that's happening there in Washington on a daily report. And let me encourage you to sign up for that. Gary, nice to have you with us. How you doing, my friend?
Good, and thank you for that promotion for the end of day report.
I read it every day. I don't know. You help me sound smart on the air.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. For me, it's therapeutic just to get all that out and on a piece of paper and give indigestion to somebody else.
Oh, boy, I tell you. Well, listen, how are you handling all this stuff? I mean, have you ever seen a mess as big as this one in Washington?
You know, I've been in Washington longer than I would care to admit. There's an old joke about Washington, you know, that it's a cesspool, but a lot of the people in this city treat it like it's a jacuzzi. Yeah. Just wallowing in that cesspool. I've seen a lot of scandals, but I don't think I've seen an administration that is facing almost every couple of days some new disclosure about the misuse of power.
Wow. Well, a couple of these I wanted to highlight while I have your time. It appears to me that this Susan Rice appointment was just to National Security Advisor was just an in-your-face appointment. Of course, she doesn't have to go through Senate confirmation. And I would assume that she could probably get executive privileges by the president. Therefore, she would never testify on what happened in Benghazi.
Bingo. You're exactly right. And I'm sure that played a part in the president's decision. He's taking a witness off the table. But I'll tell you something, it's also a reflection on the kind of man the president is. In spite of his public image, which remains very positive, he is in many ways vindictive. He's incredibly stubborn. And for people upset about things not getting done in Washington, you don't have to look much further than the Oval Office, because he either wants things to be done his way or it's the highway. And I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he appointed her to that post. And he really was sticking his finger in the eye of conservatives and Republicans and others who were upset that she lied on 5 Sunday television shows about what happened in Benghazi, Libya, and those tragic events.
All right, so where do you think Benghazi is going to go? I mean, do you think it's got any more legs, or is this just going to kind of fade away?
I certainly hope and pray it doesn't fade away. This is a very important issue. It's not just a one incident. It goes to the very heart of who we are as a nation. America has always believed we don't leave anybody behind, right. Whether it's a soldier or somebody from our diplomatic corps. There's a lot of evidence that the people that died in Benghazi did not have to die. And to let any administration, any government get away with lying about what happened, not completely owning up to the decisions that were and were not made, I think would be very bad for the American body politic. It would undermine the sense we have as Americans that we can trust our government to at least protect the lives of those that are serving us. So I'm encouraging everybody I can on Capitol Hill not to let this go. So I think we're going to see more come out in the weeks and months ahead.
Well, I sure hope so. I hope that the Speaker has the fortitude and the tenacity to stay with this, because if they get away with this, I mean, quite frankly, it's an impeachable offense from the way it sits today. They'd have to prove it otherwise, but just to cover this mess up and say, oh, well, those 4 lies weren't that valuable, I still think that the Secretary of State and the President needs to stand in front of those families again, as they did in that hangar when their caskets came in, and apologize for what they said.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, one of the things that this administration's been known for is they've got a very good PR operation. And we always get these photos of the president when he learned some news, or when he found out about a tragedy. And the photos, of course, show a man deeply troubled, a man often with his head down, looking as if he's in prayer or whatever. No pictures have been released about where the president was and what his reactions were when he found out that our ambassador and his security detail were under attack in Benghazi, that they needed help, that they had asked for reinforcements. It's strange that we don't know that. And in several congressional hearings, both congressmen and senators have asked for an accounting. Where was the president that evening? What did he do? He didn't meet with the Secretary of Defense. He didn't meet with the Secretary of State. There's no evidence that he met with the National Security Council. We do know that the next morning, before we had even retrieved the bodies from Benghazi, the president was on a plane on the way to Las Vegas to do a multi-million-dollar fundraiser in order to bankroll his reelection campaign. So I certainly have a lot of questions. The American people should be demanding answers.
All right, over to the IRS scandal, which is huge, and I still think a lot's going to come out on that. One of the things I'm hearing is that perhaps they may take Obamacare out from underneath the IRS as a result of these hearings, among other things. Any legs to that story?
Well, Republicans in the House of Representatives certainly want to do that. They, I think, probably have the votes to do it. We Republicans do not have the votes in the United States Senate. The president has a solid majority there. And even if some Democrats defected and were willing to take Obamacare out of the authority of the IRS, the president could easily veto that bill, and there wouldn't be enough votes in the Senate to overcome that veto. So I think we're stuck with what is obviously a corrupt Internal Revenue Service being involved in a very major, significant way in the health care that we receive as American citizens. And again, this is a scandalous situation, one that I think as more and more Americans become fully aware of the implications of it, are going to demand that something be done about it.
Do you expect it to go to a special prosecutor?
You know, there's a division about that, even among good guys in Washington. Some really good conservatives want a special prosecutor. Others say, well, wait a minute, special prosecutors are appointed by the Attorney General of the United States. And quite frankly, most of us don't have any confidence in Attorney General Holder and some of the shenanigans that he's been up to. One senator joked that he didn't think Holder would resign because there were still parts of the Constitution that the Attorney General hadn't gotten around to undermining yet. So I think it's a close call about whether we need a special prosecutor or whether we just need for the congressional process to continue, even though it goes slower than many of us would like.
I don't quite understand all the protocol there, but doesn't an oversight committee, could they preempt the Attorney General and request a special prosecutor?
I think there's only very limited circumstances that they can do that. And then the other thing to keep in mind is a special prosecutor, even if he is unbiased, may very well say, it's going to take me 18 months or more to sort through all of this and to come to conclusions. And quite frankly, many of us would like to see the facts out a lot sooner than that, so that people going into 2014, when the entire House of Representatives is up for re-election and a third of the Senate, that the American people would have an opportunity, if the facts warrant, to voice their displeasure about the things that are happening in Washington right now.
Do you think the Speaker has the fortitude to stay with this and keep it going?
You know, Speaker Boehner is, I know him personally, I think he's a decent man. I'm not sure if he's up to the challenge, however, of being in combat with a president that is as relentless as President Obama is. You know, like him or love him, you got to tip your hat to the president, because the guy gets up every day and works for hour after hour trying to remake America into what he thinks it should be. Now, I happen to disagree with everything he wants to do in that redo job of this great country. But he is tireless about it, and I would suggest to the Speaker, Speaker Boehner, and to other conservatives on Capitol Hill, put your recreation aside, maybe play a little less golf, etc., and get to work defending this country from those that would like to concentrate power here in Washington, D.C., contrary to what the Constitution of the United States says.
Gary, are you there at American Values, or just kind of overall with your nose to the ground there on Capitol Hill, sensing that the American people are pushing back on this nonsense, or are they just overwhelmed with it?
It's really hard to get a feel for what matters outside of Washington. You know, we can't forget that the economy is still lousy for a lot of Americans. You know, if you own stocks, you've done better, and unfortunately, I have some stocks. But if you're a manufacturing worker or a middle class or working class family, you're still living on the edge. People are still losing homes, etc. And I think there's a tendency, and understandably so, for a lot of Americans to tune out anything that's going on in Washington unless it specifically deals with their concerns, how they're going to get their kids through school, how those schools are going to be made better, how they're going to get their balance sheet straight. And I think because of all those worries, Americans don't get bogged down in a lot of the things that those of us here in Washington are very concerned about right now.
Well, Gary, you're an inspiration and delight. I want to say thank you for your many hours and being at the point of guard there in so many things. How can people sign up for your end of the day report, your daily venting?
Well, thank you for asking, and I'll try to be more general in the weeks ahead. But they can go to our website, which is ouramericanvalues.org, and there's no cost for the daily report. And we try to tell the recipients things going on in Washington that might affect their families, their values, or their businesses, and people find it quite useful. So I invite anybody listening and watching to sign up.
And how can they support American Values?
You can make a donation there on that website if you're so inclined to do so. And certainly if you like that daily report, circulate it to friends and neighbors and folks you go to church with. And by doing that, you can help us continue to grow.
All right. Thank you, Gary, for what you do. You remain in our prayers, and keep up the good work. Look forward to having you back soon.
You too. Good to be with you, and you keep up your good work and informing your listeners and viewers about the great issues affecting our country.